Market research is the secret sauce of product management, but it is found in different roles, from corporate finance analysts to strategy consultants to marketing agencies and to entrepreneurs. Spoiler, I have been working in all of the mentioned above, and I'm going to share my experience on how to thrive in those roles and how to develop your market research capabilities. So at first, let's talk about why market research is so important. For product managers, the key task, especially on the early stage of a startup or a new product, is finding product market fit. The product market fit concept, which is the central concept of product management, is finding a customer segment with a need and creating a product offer and the actual product that satisfies that need and meets the requirement of that customer segment. And this is product market fit. In order to find that secret product market fit, you need to find out what those customers want, plus where specifically to find them, what contradictions they might have, and how to talk to those customers. So you use market research at an early stage of a product, but why corporate finance and why marketing? Finance, in the corporate finance sense, market research is an analytical instrument to make decisions. For example, when I worked as a corporate finance analyst, I analyzed the market data, the customers and competitors, and the market prices and the market environment, including regulatory, to find out the answer to the big pressing question, like should we buy this industrial plant or not? Or, for example, should we invest into building a plant in this area or that area? So my job would be to analyze all the market data related to those geographical areas and to the market players that were present in those areas. For consulting, market research is one way to understand a field initially, because when you are a business consultant or management consultant, oftentimes you get onto a project where you don't know much about the industry. For example, when I worked for Bain & Company, I've been diving into the airline industry a lot, because Bain & Company is famous for their airline practice, and I have never worked for an airline before. So for my first airline project, I needed to dive into what the big airline companies were, what the key airports are, how they compete between each other, and what factors are driving that competition as well. So market research is not always about this is X competitor with the Y market share, and this is the Z number of clients they are serving. But it's also about the factors and the drivers that drive the behaviors of the players in those markets. For example, while an airline doesn't own an airport, one of the biggest factors for developing an airline would be the availability of the airport, of the physical facility, and the relationship between your airline and the airport that's providing airport services and the fees they are taking for you using those facilities. And another factor would be the fuel prices, and the third factor would be probably the demand from the customers, so the passengers. And in between those factors of supply and demand, you are finding the points you can press on to make your business more successful. And this is how management consulting works in a nutshell. And for marketing capacities, where you already have the product and you need to bring it to a certain market, to a certain customer persona that you have already described. Market research might be a source of understanding. First, how to communicate to that customer, which channels work better, which messages work better, what your brand is associated with for them, how they perceive your brand versus the competitor brands. Market research here takes the form of pre-launch activities as well as during the launch activities, like A/B tests of different creatives, like focus groups interacting with the existing product, like demos, like panels discussing the existing campaigns, the past campaigns. So all kinds of interactive activities where you already have a product and you see how the customers interact with them. And based on that information, you choose how to communicate your product and your values and your propositions to the customer. So to recap, the market research is your instrument of understanding the driving forces of your market landscape in every stage of your product, from the very beginning to the experimenting with the product launch to the pre and post launch communications of your product value. So what kind of roles you might be working in to actually do that job? So for the financial part, for the decision-making part, which business to invest in, you have a lot of market research in venture capital, in investment banking, in mergers and acquisitions, and in corporate finance. All the names are basically about the deals, but venture capital is the fund that invests into a company. Investment banking is an intermediary between one company buying another company or a fund buying another company. And mergers and acquisitions and corporate finance would be the names of those departments making investment decisions within every company, from industry to technology companies to retail companies. Just about any major corporation has either an mergers and acquisitions department, a corporate finance department, or maybe an investment department if they invest into greenfield, so making projects from scratch, or they are M&A driven and mostly acquire new companies. The other venue for decision-making kind of market research would be strategy departments. Strategy departments are a little bit different in terms of strategy being not a yes or no question, but the how and why question. In my example with the industrial plants, I worked in the corporate finance department, but I ended up heading the strategy department in the company I worked for. And that was because I provided a lot of qualitative data. So I started with the financial models that answered simplistic questions like, should we invest or not? And maybe the numbers like what the EBITDA would be, what the IRR would be, what the payback period is in years. That's the key question that you answer in the financial or deals part. In the strategy part, you mostly answer questions like how to build that solution, which customer segment we should tackle, how do we compete versus incumbents, how do we make sure that our product is not copied, what is our value proposition, how is it unique, and how do we communicate it. You see, there's a lot of how questions. And if you like this problem solving, the breaking down of that success into its key components and building decision trees, that's what management consulting is all about. But we'll talk about the key success factors a little bit later on, so stay tuned. As in my career, I have moved from established corporations to startups. Let's move this discussion to more fresh products, to starting from scratch, to entrepreneurship. And this is where market research thrives, because again, when you start a new product with just an idea, oftentimes you do not understand everything about your idea, and you need to understand your market landscape and how the industry works that you are about to enter. As an example, when I started working in the social media company called VK, they have a service very similar to Facebook, but for Russia and Eastern Europe. And they started practically almost the same year when Facebook did, just in a different region. So when I started working for that company, what I needed to understand was, despite being a B2C company, VK is really driven by its advertisers, because those are the people who pay for everything and generate revenue for the company. So that would be the specifics of your business model. Then you study your customer, who they are. Are there specific segments, specific power groups? For example, a certain power group for social media is definitely bloggers, influencers. And in order to be successful, besides having advertisers, a social network needs to have great instruments and great platform for influencers. And that's what VK did with the VK video, which is similar to Reels and longer form TikTok. That's what they launched to attract local creators, and it's been a quite successful venture for them. Then, of course, in the market research domain, you need to understand your competitors. You understand all of the established players in the area, but also all of the new players. And there is another special direction of market research, which is really interesting. It's called benchmarking. It's where you look for successful examples in other markets than your own. For example, if VK mostly operates in Eastern Europe, they do not operate in the United States. They look with a very big interest in the United States, and as well as into Asia, because Asia has its own players like WeChat and Weibo, and those are really interesting to understand their driving forces and growth drivers. You also start to see customer segments. For example, customer segments for social media could be smaller and bigger influencers, like entertainment versus business influencers, like text versus video, and so on and so forth. As they teach you in consulting, there is no right and wrong segmentation. You just try to segment your market into as many different kinds of segmentations as possible, and one of them might provide some insight to you. So when you realize what the market looks like and what the problems are, if you are an entrepreneur, you usually get an idea. For example, what if we apply fintech solutions like payments to the social media? And you start researching that solution, usually in two different directions. One of them is your competition. So you look for similar solutions somebody has already applied, first in your market, then in whichever market, so benchmarking. And the second direction is you look at your customers. Start to segment your customers, realize what your segments might be, and start talking to them. If you need ideas for customer segments, you need to watch my video about 10 great questions for customer segmentation. For the product launch, you usually go in circles, like you get an idea, You validate it through customer research, through competitor research. You refine your idea to see what works with the market. Then you try to refine also your business model, so to say monetization channel for your idea. And then you repeat that circle because your idea has shifted. And when you realize that your idea might work in terms of both competition, customer, and monetization, you start implementing it. I should make several videos for hypothesis testing, and I'm sure will. So I'll post the links to them when there will be. So back to the roles. If you are looking for a market research role and you really want to research new products, you should either be a product manager for new startups. In startups, usually product managers do that. You also might be a product marketing manager or just the CMO or marketing manager who help the product managers with the market expertise. For example, when I started a social media startup from scratch, it was an Instagram-like thing. I was responsible for market research in terms of business models. I also conducted the customer interviews, but in terms of competition and messaging, I had help from my CMO, and this is how we combined our forces to do great market research and product propositions from it. So if you want to be this researcher in a new product, it's product marketing or product marketing roles. And if you are looking for helping startups through an agency type role, or maybe accelerator or venture builder, sometimes there are roles like market researcher, or I've come across several roles that are called insights manager. Insights manager, it's usually a role in the marketing department. When it grows bigger, there are people who implement marketing campaigns. There are people who do analysis of the current campaigns, but there are also separate people who bring market intelligence from the bigger market. And this is why it's called insights. This is a very different, this is a very interesting type of role. I have considered it for myself, but instead of taking this type of role, I ended up working for my own agency, Discover with Jane. And basically, this is what I would call people working with me, market research managers, or just researchers for simplicity. And if you are interested in doing this type of job so what we do is we take a client problem or client task. Usually it's a new product launch. And in order to launch that product, they need this market intelligence from external market, as I've mentioned in the insights example, but they are not as big of a company and they don't have this expertise. And this is why they hire an agency to do that for them, to find those insights and bring them not just as a presentation of what there is in the market, but better say as solutions for building the product. If you are interested in working in this type of capacity, I can tell you more about it. And also, if you are interested in specifically working for agency type role, you can contact me and maybe we can collaborate on one of my future projects for the agency. Last but not least, the success criteria for this kind of role. A successful market researcher should bring not only the intelligence of what's going on in the market, but also solutions on what to do with the product. of what to do with the product or with the business if we are talking about deals and corporate finance. And besides bringing those actionable insights and formulating your findings as actions you might want to train yourself into, there is one big component for this type of role is being close to decision makers. And as I've mentioned before, there is a trick in consulting. In consulting, people who sell the projects or the solutions to the customers are partners. And they pretty much know the client's rationale for buying that type of project. So for paying your consulting firm to do that project. But if you are just a consultant doing that project, sometimes you do not completely understand the rationale of the decision maker. And this breaks the first principle I've just told you about, the actionability. So if you do not know the reason why they need to analyze that market, you might not bring them the precise right type of solution. For example, in consulting, there is such a stereotypical but true problem that sometimes consultants are hired into an existing situation to not bring in new solutions, but rather validate existing solutions, existing opinions about what to do or what not to do. And if you are in that situation, unfortunately, you might not understand that you are specifically in that situation. So to avoid that situation, I would say it's really important to understand as much as possible about your decision maker and their rationale. And if we are talking about startups or companies with strategy type departments, it's really important to understand who you are reporting to and be reporting to the company's founders, owners, or at least as high to the top management as possible. Because what happened to me in one of my previous companies was that I was given some resource to experiment with the startup ideas, to develop them through market research. But while I was doing just that, the company was changing its owners. So there was a big share sold to another company. And of course, much of the attention of the top management was dragged to that deal instead of new minor projects that we were developing. And I didn't know about it. And when you do not know about such things, you sometimes can misunderstand the rationale of people neglecting or rejecting your solution. And in order not to be in that situation, again, make sure that you report directly to the owners of the company who are interested in what you're doing, or at least you have access to those people to check in with them either directly or maybe through your manager, and check in as often as you possibly can what the priorities are, what the situation is, and what the rationale for hiring you is, and maybe it has changed during the project. If you are interested in knowing more about market research roles or the details of the process, please write the questions in the comments or approach me directly. If you want to work together on market research, I would be happy to collaborate.